Now what will it be? Death or exile?
Then you better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone. Oh, the times they are a-changing.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the times they are indeed a-changing. Welcome to this Film Exiles Release The Snyder Cut 2-year anniversary celebration. Throughout the next couple of hours, we'll be taking a walk down memory lane. We'll be having lots of exciting stuff for you to celebrate the Release The Snyder Cut movement. We're going to have a bunch of interviews with some of the most integral members of the movement over these last 2 years. They're going to share their own personal experiences of the movement. There's a lot of people who I would have loved to interview for this podcast, and it's no slight on anyone who wasn't invited to participate. We just wanted to focus on people who don't really have their own platforms. So for example, people like Chris Wong have been incredibly important to the movement over the last 2 years, but he has his own great YouTube channel, and I'd encourage everybody to search for him and others to hear their views and their experiences on the Snyder Cut movement. Our plan here was to focus on those who don't really have a platform and to celebrate their mostly silent contributions. So, who better to join me in this endeavour than my friend Lupe? And while he'll deny it, especially in the early years, he was amongst the most important people in this whole thing. I don't know if he knows this, but in my early conversations with Fiona, and before I even knew him, she used to tell me that Lupe is her most important person. Those were her words. She wanted to give him credit all the time publicly, but he always demanded that he stayed in the shadows. She told me that while she accepted her role and responsibility of being kind of a face of the movement, which she definitely was, every decision she ever made, Lupe had his hand in it. Going forward in recent times, he is someone that I have bounced ideas off and have had long, in-depth discussions with about strategy and so many other things about getting this film, which we all want. So here he is, my friend, the main man, Lupe.
Well, thanks for that introduction. I'm dark skinned, but if you could see, I'm blushing right now. I'm glad to be, part of this movement. I'm glad to be part of this fandom. At the end of the day, the way I look at the whole thing is that we're doing it for something greater than each one of us. And that's why it's so powerful. That's why it's so strong. That's why a lot of people have taken positively to it. Even people who, were on the opposite side and were naysayers, because, at the end of the day, it's not about any one of us. But, today's about celebrating us, because after a lot of hard work, it's only human and it's only good to, gather around and tell our stories and, have an appreciation for all the heart and soul that we've put into it. So I'm really excited to, share this moment with everyone, every single person in Snyder Cut. Like, let's be happy and let's celebrate. So let's go.
Let's go. Right. So where did this all begin? That's a very difficult point.
It's an epic saga.
Yeah, to find and pinpoint the beginning. But I think one of the seminal moments was perhaps the media backlash. Not even media. New media backlash towards Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice. And
we must say that it kind of started even before the film came out. I'd say in the run-up to the film, probably half a year before the film came out, we all started to notice this strange antagonism towards it. It was coming out of nowhere and it was coming from everywhere at the same time.
Yeah.
Do you remember that there was this algorithm that predicted that? It was like a scientist said, oh, I've come up with a new algorithm that's going to predict what films are going to be box office bombs and box office flops, and Batman v Superman is going to be a box office bomb. And all of a sudden, the algorithm never surfaced again. It was like it was created just for BVS.
Oh man, there was a lot of craziness in those days. My brief memories were in the days after, specifically seeing a lot of identical tweets from millions. It felt like millions of accounts saying the exact same thing verbatim. And then a few months later, all of those accounts disappearing into thin air, all of those tweets non-existent. I find it very strange. For me, I didn't really follow film discussion online. I've always been a film fan, but always just kept to my own opinions, never read reviews or anything like that. But in the run-up to Batman v Superman, seeing the trailers, you get like recommended videos, and I was so excited for this film. I thought, okay, I'll click on that video, and you, as a fan, you kind of get drawn into all of this stuff. And it was very strange that there was just this kind of team negativity, let's say. It was like a pack of wolves circling their prey. It was very strange that you would have many outlets online who I'd never heard of before, but I mean, I'm sure a lot of the listeners have.
Outlets like Birth, Death Movies, outlets like Slash Film, outlets like Collider,
Screen
Junkies. Yes, I mean, it's not in my style to sort of name transgressors, but at the same time, we do have to remember the role that they played in all of this, the role that they played in sabotaging the best efforts of artists and creators and people who had dreams and hopes and, wanted to tell these stories, and the role that they had in making Marvel this invasive force that just took over all of cinema because all these media outlets made sure they decimated the competition.
And at the time, I'll be honest, I quite enjoyed all of the Marvel movies. They were actually pretty decent in terms of quality back then. I remember enjoying Iron Man, Captain America. I thoroughly enjoyed those films. But I did find it very strange why you would get these kind of pitting the two against each other.
Just hyperbolic.
It was very
rhetoric.
silly. Yeah. Anyway, we got Batman v Superman. I loved the film.
Same here. One of my top 3 films of all time.
It's an incredible film. I love it to this day. Then after, we got more hyperbole, and that resulted in a demand for rewrites to the film and the vision going forward. So we know that the film went into production, and the film completed its principal photography
under a new head of DC.
Yeah.
And a new president of Warner Brothers.
Correct. We're going to fast forward a few months, and we got some terribly upsetting news, not even from a film perspective, but from a human perspective. Zach and Debbie lost their child. And I'm not a parent, so I don't know, but I have had loss in my life, and from not so tragic circumstances. And anyone who's felt any form of loss can empathise. To lose someone in the circumstances they did, I don't really have the words, because I can't put myself in that position. I've never had to endure what they've endured. The result was that we got the news that Zach was stepping away from the film. And that resulted in series of questionable events.
I remember it like it was yesterday, because after BVS, we defended that movie so strongly because we felt so strongly about, as I said, it's one of my top 3 films of all time. And, I felt personally that this sort of film and this sort of storytelling deserved to have its place. It's okay for Marvel films to exist and do whatever they do, and for all the people that like them, more power to you. But I remember that we were very excited for Justice League. And one thing that Zack is so good at when he was making, his films is he would just drop a picture and the internet will break. He would drop a picture of like Aquaman in his costume, or like a Flash costume, or some production still. And he used to do this like periodically. So we'd come to expect this sort of tasty morsels of hype. Like, this dude is like the hype master. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so it was kind of, we felt like it was coming up on the time. You could just feel it in the air. You know how you can feel a storm coming with a change in air temperature?
Yeah, he did post, when he was in post-production, he was posting, for example, Gal Gadot doing ADR.
Yeah.
He posted the visual effects being on Aquaman.
All that stuff is getting people hyped.
Yeah.
So, it was feeling, we were in that sort of mood.
Yeah, we were very upbeat and very happy.
And very happy. And then all of a sudden, I just see the news come across the timeline. It hits you from all angles, because the first thing that you can't believe and hits you is the loss of a child. Like, what? Like, obviously there are no warning signs for these things. Tragedies like this just happen out of nowhere, and it was so hard to believe. It felt surreal. And obviously, the loss of life is the most important thing, but a lot of people also don't understand that when you work very hard at something, it could be anything. It could be, if you're working on like a huge project, if you're working on like a degree or anything in life, and a film, art, things that take years of your life, take your hopes, your passion, your blood, your sweat, your tears. Losing that for whatever reason is also a tragedy. It's also a pain. People, fall into depression because they've been kicked off, art projects and movies and had to leave school and stuff like that. So this was such a confounding and compounding situation, and our hearts just went out to Zack at that moment, in which, and at that point we didn't even really care so much about the movie. We set it aside and said we just want Zack to be okay. And a couple of days later, he posted the first. I felt like the comments in the article, to me, they felt like manufactured. It was definitely, it was a situation that was choreographed to send a message out. But his first post on Vero after that was what felt unfiltered and unadulterated. And the post he made is 100% Snyder, because Snyder, he communicates through images.
Visually.
For him, an image is worth 1,000 words. A picture is worth 1,000 words. And he, posted this, amazing Vero posts.
And we are informed that Joss Whedon will be taking over the film, and what we were told was that we'll be still getting Zack Snyder's vision, but it would be it would just be completed by Joss Whedon. So I think that's one of the reasons why people really didn't care about the film as well, other than that it's of secondary importance. They felt like, okay, we've got to the stage now where Zack's created his film. This person is just going to come in and direct like very, very minimal pickups, or, and it would all adhere to the template that Zack had put out.
I mean, the exact words from Toby Emmerich were, the directing is minimal, and it has to adhere to the style and tone and the template that Zack set. We're not introducing any new characters. It's the same characters in some new scenes. He's handing the baton to Just. But the course has really been set by Zack. I still believe that despite this tragedy, we'll still end up with a great movie.
Right. And then we got, some interviews from cast members and the production team, and giving that line as well. And, in hindsight, we know it was all nonsense, but we can understand that under contract and in the run-up to a film coming out, they're going to toe the party line and keep the hype going. But for me, the biggest tell that this was not going to be the Zack Snyder film anymore was not even the length of the reshoots, because you can do a little bit in a lot of time and you can do a lot in a little bit of time. So that wasn't really the key. The key for me was when Junkie XL, Tom Holkenberg, announced his departure from Justice League. He released a tweet with a caption that says, "As my mentor Hans Zimmer told me, you haven't made it in Hollywood as a composer until you get replaced on a project. So I guess I finally graduated this week. It pains me to leave the project, but a big thanks to Zack for asking me to be part of his vision, and I wish Danny, Joss and Warner Brothers all the best with Justice League." That set alarm bells off for me. First of all, when you're changing a score, which Junkie had already previously, a couple of months prior, said was complete. When you change the score of a film, you're changing its fabric. For me, the score of a film is almost like a character. It's an essential component of filmmaking. And when I saw that, and the fact that he says he was replaced on the project, it set alarm bells off. And not just replaced, but replaced by who? I have nothing against Danny Elfman. I think he's a brilliant composer. He's done some of the great works of my youth. Talking about Batman, we're talking about Spider-Man. He has been doing some great work in his time. But he does play towards the nostalgic, hope and optimism kind of perspective of what bloggers and talking heads were asking for at that time. That was a big alarm bell for me, and I think that's when I knew that, not Zack's film anymore.
Well, for me, it had been a run-up to this. Now, one thing about me on Twitter and in my discussions with people is I always take things at face value. I always just look at the facts and I interpret them for what they are. And when Jeff Johns came on, I was a bit suspicious of his intentions, suspicious of what he was going to do to the DCEU. And the reason why was because the same rhetoric, the same words that bloggers and reviewers and the harshest, most strident and aggressive dissenters of the DCEU had been spouting. Hope, optimism, heroics. He was parroting those words. It doesn't take a rocket scientist or a doctor in toxicology to understand that these kind of narratives are not going to be good for the sort of storytelling that we as DCEU fans have been enjoying. And when Jeff Johns used to talk in interviews and, throw those words around, I used to raise it as a concern on Twitter and try to tell the fandom, people, this is not good. We need to sort of, raise our voice and remind them that we like the storytelling that Zack Snyder was doing.
Yeah.
But I got a lot of hate from a lot of people because I decided that I would tell the truth and not sugarcoat things and just talk to the facts. Mm-hmm. I got a lot of people who blocked me, muted me, slandered me, and to this day, they're still there. So during this transition time, my suspicious mind was still active, trying to parse out what's true from what's not, what's going on and what's not happening. And once the Junkie XL thing happened, my volume went even louder. And I told people, like, this is really, 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 really bad. This is not good. Because you have talked about, you know, what the score means to a film. And one thing is, Zach's films are very score driven.
Yeah.
He's one of the best directors at communicating his tone and communicating ideas and using the score so beautifully. And obviously that will come from his history as a music director, as someone who's directed a lot of music videos. Also, Junkie XL is a person who has been on Zach's films since Man of Steel. He was sort of an apprentice to Hans Zimmer on Man of Steel, although the Man of Steel score is entirely Hans Zimmer's score. In Batman v Superman, it was more of a 50-50 proposition. I mean, you can argue for the semantics, but they're both credited for the score. So it seemed like it was a smooth transition into Junkie XL being the, you know, complete composer of the Justice League score.
Correct.
So when you terminate that,
alarm bells
have to go off.
And
because
also,
you're cutting the story.
And also, you're looking at all of the DCU films. All of the composers on those films are apprentices of Hans Zimmer. So even Stephen Price, Rupert Gregson-Williams, they're all part of that stable.
There's a link. It's like a family tree.
Yeah, this was a signal of change.
This was a signal of change. Then, as you said, the words that he used, there was something in particular that he said, and he said, "Thanks to Zach for asking me to be part of his vision." That phrase, his vision, immediately let me know that it wasn't Zach's vision. You know, so this was like a huge issue, and you know, that's one of the turning points, seminal moments in this journey. And then, you know, I had been discussing with friends and, you know, just trying to see where Zach was at mentally, you know, how he's doing, how connected or not he is to the project, just, you know, being mindful of that. And one thing I told people was, I said, let's see what happens around Comic-Con, because Zach is very, very fond of Comic-Con. He is someone who really appreciates fans, and he's, you know, always says, you know, never miss a Hall H. Yeah. Like, he's someone who will always, you know, sort of try to contribute as much as a lot of people. And it's been sad to see a lot of fan blogs be harsh on Zach. Zach is one of the most given and most conscientious directors when it comes to being a fan, because he himself is a fan. He knows what it's like to
I still remember the Batman v Superman announcement at San Diego Comic-Con.
Until I know what happens next, you guys say, Zach, what is the movie about? What is the movie about? And the truth is, you don't want me to tell you what the movie's about. That's like, right? You love movies, so like you want to go and see the movie. But I can, you know, I can say that maybe there's a single element that's in the film, that will be in the film, that we could, I don't know, that I could help you out with. And so I was thinking about how to do that, like how could I do that? And I sort of poured through the DC universe to look for a way to tell this thing. And so what happened was, I came across a thing that I feel like, stop! And I feel like sort of sums up, because of course we're writing the thing now, so it doesn't exist, but there is a thing that I found that kind of helped me understand what you can do. So I have a friend with me, this Harry Lennox. Harry Lennox was in Man of Steel, and the reason I brought him out is because his voice is just way better than mine. Now he's gonna come right here. Now what he's gonna read you a little thing. He's gonna read a little thing, and some of you will recognize it, and it's not, we're not adapting this thing, but it is the thing that will help tell that story. So if we could, actually just like a spotlight would be cool on the leg turn. Is that? Okay, that's, hang on. Hey, let's see. All right, that was good.
I want you to remember, Clark, in all the years to come, in all your most private moments, I want you to remember my hand at your throat. I want you to remember the one man who beat you.
Oh my God.
Like Zach knows how to give the fans,
What they want,
and what they need.
So
in the run up to this, I said Zach at least has to. If it's still Zach's movie, he will make an appearance at SDCC just to show support. Even though he can't be on the movie, just to show support. And if not, then he'll do something, and we have to pay attention to that. And San Diego Comic-Con came, and no Zach. Zach didn't post anything. He didn't do anything. The only thing he did was responded to Ray Fisher standing up for him and shouting him out with the I Love ZS t-shirt.
Yeah.
He responded in kind. I love RF.
So that's basically the run-up.
The run-up.
Now, sorry if we've depressed you all. It's gonna get better, trust me. We've got one more piece of depressing news to go, and that was what happened during the film. So, I'll give you my experience the night I watched Justice League for the first time. I watched it on a Thursday night, midnight preview. I went with my sister, big fans, and we'd also seen Batman v Superman together, so we went to see Justice League, and I can't really express the feelings I had during the film, because it was just so confusing. The only feeling I can remember was a feeling of disgust that I had to sit next to my younger sister watching the incredible Diane Lane and the incredible Amy Adams exchange a piece of dialogue which I found revolting, and then to see Ezra Miller in a very compromised position on top of Gal Gadot, again, revolting, embarrassing. That's the only feeling I can remember during the film. I remember coming home, I sat on my bed, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, I didn't tweet, I didn't post or anything. I just sat on my bed in the dark for about 2 hours trying to contemplate what I'd just seen. I knew that was not a Zack Snyder film. I felt confused. I felt hurt. So how about your experiences?
My experience is slightly different, but largely the same. So for me, because the alarm bells had been going for me for over a year, ever since Jeff Johns and Toby Emmerich came up and I was hearing about hope and optimism, and bloggers went to, the set, and people like Devin Faraci and people like Peter Scratchy, whatever his name is. I'm sorry. I apologize. I don't know how
apologize to Dickens.
I don't know how to pronounce his name, but after they were talking about all the things they were saying, about the film, and Junkie XL, being taken off the project, and Joss Whedon doing extensive reshoots. In my mind, I had already come to grips with the fact that it was not going to be a good movie. I was not going in with high expectations. I was not going in excited at all. So when I saw it, it was jarring, because there were parts of it that I liked and parts of it that I disliked. So after I saw it, I had a discussion with a friend and said, it was okay, for a Justice League movie, blah, blah, blah. I think even just hours after that, I started to absolutely hate it. When I started to think on everything and I just started to piece things together and the way Superman... The first thing is, I'm a huge Superman fan. That's my character. That's my guy. And he was completely destroyed in this film. And it was so frustrating because every single thing that we had fought against in terms of a very basic two-dimensional, non-dramatic, non-true to the comics, but nostalgic donor like Superman, they'd finally done on the big screen. This is a Superman that a lot of people who had wrong opinions about Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, this is what they had asked for.
And even in the marketing, they were marketing it like a Super Friends,
like Super Friends
and stuff like that.
It was terrible. Yeah. It was cringe. It was terrible, and it was as good as I felt after seeing Man of Steel. I'm proud to be a Superman fan because my whole story with the whole way that Zack Snyder has told these Superman stories is that I've been a Superman fan all my life, and my brother's a Batman fan, and a lot of my friends, obviously everybody's a Batman fan, apart from me. Forget Batman. And everybody in popular consciousness sees the Donner Superman. This popular
Adventures of
Lois and Clark. But it's this sort of two-dimensional, happy-go-lucky character. Meanwhile, Batman has had some more sort of dramatic, in-depth, more artistic, more rich storytelling. And so everybody's been like, oh, Batman is the best. And I argue with people so much that you don't understand. Superman is also good. Like, he's just, people are like, oh no, everything's too easy for him. He's always smiling. He's always happy. And I'm like, no, it's not like that. He's just, like a good guy, And
you finally
with Man of Steel, people agree. People are like, okay, you know what? You're right. Like, Superman can be dramatic. He can be this. Batman v Superman. He can have death. He can go through struggles and triumph and all that stuff. And what Justice League did was completely reverse that course and completely destroy the character and just degrade him. And he went back to being, a character that wasn't taken seriously and nobody really loved and enjoyed as much as he should have. And that was very, very depressing for me.
So that is the end of the first part of this journey. The origins, let's say, the prequel of the Release the Snyder Cut movement. We couldn't really get into the movement without reflecting on how the movement was born. So now we're going to move into the next part, which is the birth of the Snyder Cut movement. So now we come to the birth of the movement. The very next day after the majority of people saw it on the 17th, the very next day was something monumental. We got leaks from a hero called Ascended Ancient.
And he is ascended, whoever he is.
he is a hero, honestly. He really gave us something to hold on.
Yeah,
he leaked
with hard proof.
It was hard evidence. He leaked 6 or 7 videos with some completed, some with previs, some with post-vis. I'm not exactly a specialist on the intricacies of VFX, but they were watchable. No sound, but very watchable, and they included things like Iris West being involved in a collision and the Flash coming to save her. There's actually a little part from that video that was in one of the trailers as well, where he pokes his finger through the glass. There was another one with
Cyborg?
With Cyborg and his first flight. So, and there was a lot, yeah, you're right, there was a lot with Cyborg, because there was ones where you were seeing into his eyes, where he was looking into some kind of matrix or something like that. So there was these videos that had come out, and they were immediately taken down. They were gone. But some of us,
Of course.
once
Nothing dies on the internet.
Exactly. Once something appears online, that's it. You cannot kill it. So some of us managed to get hold of it. There's some heroes that provided me with copies as well in a high res, and thank God for those, because we would be talking about pure speculation in those early days. We needed everything we could get, and yeah, we got that, and then 3 days later, November 21st. You could call it a kind of birth of a movement. We had an epic tweet from MovieBuff100, which was just a hashtag, Release the Snyder Cut. And that took fire. And, any movement or any kind of culture is defined by its identity, by symbols, by, ideas. You can't kill an idea. We watched V for Vendetta the other day, and there's a lot of importance placed on symbolism, and we have our symbols, we have our hashtags. No matter what you do, you got that hashtag, you push that out. That is all of us. We aren't Chris or Lupe or Fiona, or we are Release the Snyder Cut, right? So we are defined by this hashtag. And, shout out to Movie Buff. He caught that snappy slogan and it stuck, and it's been on the up and up since then. So a few days later, we had a petition actually come out. Zack Snyder fan created a petition demanding the director's cut of Zack Snyder's Justice League to have also Tom Hulkenberg, i.e. Junkie XL's score. And this petition took off like wildfire. At its closing, it managed to get 180,000 signatures. That is truly incredible, because you've got to remember that for every one person that participates in something, you're going to have hundreds that also support but just don't participate. And we've seen, and we've experienced that ourselves in Twitter events and such. I know many people who support the release of the Snyder Cut, but they do not really actively participate generally. But they would pay to watch it. So seeing that number right there, 180,000, for me is it's incredible. And I remember this petition going around at the time. I signed it. I'm sure you signed it as well. And that was a very important moment as well, because that got a lot of coverage.
And it's signaled to us that we're not alone.
Yeah.
Because one thing that we have come to find out over the years with a lot of the negative narrative that has been labeled on DC films or on Zack Snyder or on the things that we love, is that it tends to be a vocal minority. There are a lot of people who love these things, who want these stories, and they may not have the same platform. They may not be media people, but they're there. And the hashtag, the petition, gaining that momentum very quickly, immediately, even when people really had just a bit of information, not as much information as we have now. For that to happen was a clear and strong signal. And we're going to discuss more. You can see that it sent shockwaves through the studio, and people were really paying attention to it because there was a response to it.
And there was actually firings at that period of time as well. I think Joss Whedon, who was initially intended to do Batgirl, was removed from there, if that ever was going to happen. Jeff Johns was soon after ousted. John Berg was ousted. So it made an impact. And then rumours started circulating online that there was a cut. I mean, there's rumours and there's rumours. And you kind of start getting an idea of which sources of rumours are more reliable than others. And there was, particularly on DC Cinematic, there was some initial indication that there actually is a Zack Snyder cut of Justice League. And obviously online we have our communities, we have our connections. It's very easy to talk to people online in positions that are in the know, let's say, and you can ascertain what's true and what's not. You can start to build your own picture in your mind. It's important not to just accept everything, but if things make sense and dovetail, you can then put those in a kind of a narrative or a story. And then when things start being replicated elsewhere from more reliable sources, then you know that you've got something here. There's something real about this thing. The film exists. How much of it exists or to what degree it's finished, that's all up in the air. And to be honest, it's not really important to me. It never has been important. The thing that's important is that the film exists, because then you have a foundation to fight from. And this is the kind of discussions we've been having online. And just to reiterate what we've had to fight against these past couple of years, I just have a personal anecdote of an interaction with John Campier a few days after I'd heard some information. And he was so dismissive and so, that he's got friends and he's lucky enough to be friends with people who are on the production and they know, and they've told him in no uncertain terms that there is no cut. And just none of this makes any sense when you actually have all of the information. And lo and behold, a few years later, we find out there is a film. It does exist. But the reason why I raise this is because it's important to remember what we've had to fight against all these years. It's been a battle, an everyday struggle in the trenches online, every day.
It's been a beautiful struggle.
And, another big piece of information was when Fiona in November time shared with us an interaction she had with Zack.
Yeah. This interaction was very important because up to this point, we hadn't really heard Zack Snyder's verdict on the film, because it could be a situation where Zack Snyder gave the go-ahead for all these changes.
Yeah.
So then why would you fight for a Snyder cut if one of the theaters is the cut that he wants?
Yeah.
But Zack said to Fiona, he said, "I'll be honest, I have not seen the film since I stepped away." That lit a fire under so many people, because that was our indication that an injustice had been done, and that the Justice League film, its existence as it was, as a Frankenstein monster, chopped and screwed, regurgitated, Marvel-esque copy of something that was supposed to be great, was not supposed to exist. And so that lit a fire under a lot of people. And Fiona goes on, in a few more days to talk about the state of the Snyder Cut, when people are, trying to ascertain whether there is something to fight for. And she said, "Look, it's almost done, at least 80% with post-production, and also she said that Junkie's score was completed,
which he told us a long time ago, but people forgot somehow
for some reason.
Yeah,
but
that again, because Fiona is someone we all looked up to at that time, especially after her interactions with Zack. We trusted Fiona very much, implicitly, and hearing that from her again re-energized the movement. She had to bear so much responsibility in those early days, and honestly, it's incredible what she did for us.
And I guess now is as good a time as any
to give you all a little surprise.
Hello everybody, it's Fiona here. We have come a long way together. Thank you for fighting for Zack and his creative vision. I believe the real Justice League is closer than ever. Thank you to everybody who is sending me the lovely wishes. I hope to see you all soon. Release the Snyder Cut.
That's absolutely incredible just to hear Fiona's voice. Fiona is about the most powerful force that started this movement. I mean, it started with other people. Someone else started the hashtag. You've done an incredible job. There's so many people, carrying it forward at this time. But in terms of organizing the fandom and just being a voice,
Definitely.
She carried the torch. Pretty much solo dolo for so long.
Yeah.
And we miss her dearly. We know that, everybody has, their lives to deal with and their lives to go back to. So we're very, happy that she is, doing well and she's okay and she's living her life. And we know, that her hiatus from the fandom is just temporary. She'll be back.
She'll be back soon.
And it's so good to hear her voice, and that gives me so much hope and so much energy to just carry on. What do you think?
Yeah, well, obviously I spoke to her a couple of times in the last few weeks. She's doing good. She will be back soon. She just needs a bit more time, but keep sending the wishes, keep saying your prayers if that's your thing, and she'll be back soon, stronger than ever and ready to keep fighting the fight.
Yeah, the good fight.
Yeah, so and then a few weeks later we had some news from a different source. There was a guest on Kevin Smith's podcast, and she said that she was at a screening of an early version of the film.
I promised them I wouldn't talk today, but yeah, lots of that stuff was in there.
That's the version that you saw. Fuck,
I saw
man.
that, and I saw the other version too.
The one that's out now?
Yes.
And in terms of seeing them both, what do you think?
I like the first one better.
I mean, at least it's all one vision, right? That's, again, they should put out that fucking movie. Changed. Superman joins the fight and teams up with the League to defeat Steppenwolf. However, at one point, Steppenwolf tries to tempt Superman into joining his army. Ready for this? This made me so fucking angry. And we see Darkseid for the first time in Superman's vision, and we see flashes of the nightmare footage that Batman had in Batman v Superman. However, Superman snaps back out of it and delivers the final blow to defeat Steppenwolf. Was that in the version you saw? You saw Darkseid?
Yes, there was a Darkseid in there.
What did it look like?
Kind of like the finish, but not really.
Not fully finished.
No, dressed in a suit, kind of.
God damn it.
You're a lucky person. I wish I was her. But again, that's more hope that we as a community grasped onto. And while this is going on, in mid-January, a website is born. forsnydercut.com. It was originally .org, now it's .com. It went live. It was created by Fiona Zeng, but I think you have a bit of insight into this website, because having known you for the last few months, I've kind of grasped your sensibilities, and then I revisit this website. I'm thinking, you know what? This has got a lot of Lupe's fingerprints on it. Why don't you tell us about how this website came about?
So, Fiona and I were best pals on, and we still are. Forever she'll be, have a special place in my heart. And on top of all the things she was doing for the community, being the face of, all our hopes and our dreams, and being sort of our ambassador. She was like the fan ambassador to Zack Snyder. She wanted to build this website to, coordinate all our activities, have, all our, be a repository of information, so that, we can easily, instead of searching through Twitter or just trying to...
And not just us, for anybody who's interested, because, our minds are brilliant tools. You know, I can think of an article from THR, I can think of an article from Deadline, I can think of an article that someone wrote on their own blog, I can think of a tweet someone posted, and I can bring all that information together and have a picture. But not everybody has those pieces of information. So a place to collect all of that,
where people could just refer to.
Vital.
It was a very ambitious project. She is not a professional website maker, and she threw herself wholeheartedly into it. I'm glad that I was there to support her, because obviously she needed it to be in English so it could reach this audience. She also needed to plan like the pathways where information will be located, the best things that belonged in different places. And to me, it was just like I can't take any credit for it, and I don't want to, because it was just amazing seeing this person working so hard on this thing and just being so passionate about it. And I was just happy to support her, to encourage her, to be her sounding board, her translator, help her organize things and help her put things, where they should be. And it was absolutely brilliant. It's gone through different iterations to be where it is now, to make sure that the software and technology, was proper. But I mean, for her to have set that up, it was mind blowing to witness the birth of it.
And only 1 month later, the website Fiona, with your help, created in mid-February, a curious image appears, and it is an image of Darkseid on a throne and Earth being subjugated to some form of explosion. I will guess where that came from. I think the cat's out of the bag on that one.
This was like the first of Zach's epic storyboard.
Yes, it was the first one.
The first of many.
It actually dovetails into what the lady on Kevin Smith's podcast said. It was a confirmation that Darkseid was in the film.
Yes.
And that lit a fire under me personally, because at that point I was not involved in the movement. I had zero interaction other than pleasantries and you don't want to overdo sending messages to people like Fiona, because they have a lot of responsibility at that time. So I very rarely spoke to Fiona, but this image lit a fire under me. I have a history in campaigning. I have a familial history in protest. I have been brought up in an environment where protest and speaking for the oppressed has been very important. I am a fan of radical thinking. I'm a fan of radical movements. And I see their value in many people coming together for one cause. So I started thinking about how we could use our numbers, because we're a lot of people. Even if you discount the 180,000 that signed a petition, you're not going to get all of them. But there were still thousands of us online. So I contacted Fiona on Vero, and it was my very first interaction with her. I just said, Fiona, I have this idea. Maybe we can all gather together. If you get everyone together, because everyone looks to you, and we can all tweet on the same day.
That day was the 17th of May, which was the 6-month anniversary of our injustice.
She was so positive. She got back to me. I said, listen, Fiona, I know you've got a lot on your plate. Let me make a poster or whatever, and then you can share it with everyone. I don't want, to do anything more. I'll leave it to you, and then let's all, get together and let's do it. So we did it. It trended with something like 14,000 tweets. which was very impressive. It was trending in many countries around the world, and the positivity got going, and it was like I think it woke a lot of people up, outsiders especially, saying 6 months and these people still haven't got over it. We made the noise that day, and that was very important. And that was actually the beginning of my relationship with Fiona, who I've become very close with over the last 18 months since then. In those initial days, like the first 6 months after that, we would talk every day, strategizing, like, what's the next thing? And she would come up with ideas, and she wanted to do another kind of Twitter get together, but to celebrate films rather than protesting ones that we lost. So there was a narrative that Zack Snyder fans were not DC fans, so we kind of tried to lay that to rest as well. Like, we shared all of our DC memorabilia online with photos and things like that. Then we did a series of Twitter events. The Man of Steel celebration. We did then the BVS Twitter campaign, celebrating all the things that we love about BVS and highlighting some of the positive reviews that the film got from fans and from some journalists and reviewers as well. Then we did our kind of we shook it up a bit, and we wanted to champion David Ayer's vision of Suicide Squad. And we should always remember that our fight for artistic integrity does not end with the Snyder Cut. If we truly believe what we're saying, we have to fight for all forms of artistic injustice, and that's why I found it important to highlight the call for the release of David Ayer's cut of Suicide Squad as well. And then that brings us on to the following week, which we did perhaps the most important campaign of them all, because it wasn't just about a film, it was about trying to raise money for an important cause. In this group was Robert Carlin, Sylvia, Fiona, forgive me if I've forgotten anyone, but there was a group of us in there, and I think it was Sylvia who came up with the idea to try and help raise money for charity. So we said donate $5 to the AFSP, and then post 5 pictures of Wonder Woman, from either Wonder Woman or from Batman v Superman. And it was a bit slow to begin with, but at the end of the day, this drive was really worth it, because we raised over $1,600 for the AFSP in one day, without any big help from any bloggers or any websites. Even people with a platform that could have helped didn't really support us. But what we did was really important. We made a difference, and it kind of kicked off this trend of marrying the Release the Snyder Cut movement with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, which is important for obvious reasons to this community. And that is where the first one, Man of Steel, I came into contact for the first time with our first guest, the most incredible artist in this movement, in my opinion. He works harder than anyone I know. Every single day this guy churns out art. And now I'm going to introduce to you all to Ramesh Da Silva. It is my pleasure to introduce you to the heart of the fandom, because we know this is all about art, and we have been fighting for artistic integrity, creative freedom, and what is a fight for art without one of the best artists in the fandom, Ramesh Da Silva, my friend.
Hey everyone.
So we're here to celebrate our 2 years fighting for this cut, and basically I'm just
want to share with everybody how we got introduced to each other, and how did your journey start? Tell us a bit about how you became involved in this fight for the Snyder Cut.
For me, Chris, I had seen Dawn of the Dead, but I didn't know about Zack. But when it came to 300, the first time I saw the trailer, I really, it blew my mind. So I wanted to know who's doing this, and then really into what this man is doing and capable of. So then from that time onwards, I've like really been a big fan of Zack Snyder. So after 300, like I love 300. I think even more than Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, I watched 300 the most, I think.
Yeah, we have very similar introductions to Zack, because I also was kind of saw Dawn of the Dead and didn't know who this guy was. And actually, the original Dawn of the Dead is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. So I was really really nervous when I heard about this remake, but I was thoroughly impressed. And then, you know, you forget about these things, and I went and saw 300, and I thought, wow, I have to find out who this guy is. And it was the same guy who made Dawn of the Dead, and I've been hooked ever since, same as you.
Yeah, because that first sequence that he did for Dawn of the Dead was amazing.
Yeah.
But, I had forgotten about it. After I saw 300, I went back and watched it, and I remembered why it was so good. After 300, I kept on watching all of his stuff. But I think the next big thing that sort of I never expected was Man of Steel. I think I expected a superhero movie, but that first sequence on Krypton, at the end of the Krypton sequence, it felt like I had finished a movie.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I think I got my worth of the ticket that I bought at the end of that sequence, because it was so rich. The production, the design of the design of Krypton, from the technology that they used, it was far ahead of anything that we had seen on any of the other movies. So
yeah, he built a world, but he also built a culture. We kind of got a kind of real good look at what Kryptonian culture really could be, even to the finest of details, like the color of the undersuit worn by different families is truly stunning.
I think, that was those little things, his art department is out of this world. So I enjoyed it. I looked forward when Batman v Superman was announced. I was over the moon. So I was waiting for that for a long time. So after I watched that, I was thrilled with it, but there was some sort of negativity. At that time, I saw things come up on the internet more than, because I wasn't involved in social media at that time as well. So I saw articles and things
the reaction to BVS was ridiculous. It went beyond social media and film circles. It transcended into regular life, and it was quite something else. It was a storm like I've never seen before. Like you, I wasn't really I was on Twitter, but I never really got involved in film Twitter or anything like that. I've always been a film fan, but I just enjoyed watching films and talking about them with my friends. What happened post BVS, that was a real phenomenon, really.
Because I really didn't understand, because here Zach was trying to do something a little different, give something a little more flavor, put some sort of thought into it.
But it was what Jonathan Kent said to Clark. He says people are afraid of what they don't understand, and then in BVS, Martha says people hate what they don't understand. I find that really interesting.
And I mean, that reaction, I think that sort of flipped me. I was like a casual fan, you know, but that reaction, that sort of people were sort of so against it and sort of almost telling everyone not to go and see it, sort of thing. So that really sort of bugged me.
Yeah.
But okay, so it passed and things happened, and Justice League was announced, and so I look forward to that as well. Then you know what happened. So even I was hopeful. I still thought, okay, he has done most of the work. Okay, maybe this guy is just touching up and finishing it off. I was hopeful. So I went to I went on Thursday night. There was a screening the first day, so I went for the screening, very hopeful. Sat down, and the first time I saw that WB logo, I thought there's something wrong with this.
Yeah.
Because usually, you know, right?
Zach stylizes his Warner Brothers logo.
Yeah, he always does something, right? Even the trailers had that little wintry sort of like ice cold look
Yeah,
to it.
it was in his first trailer. It had the white. It was just very white on a black background, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, we were faced with something else.
At the time, I was like, I wanted the movie, so I was waiting for that. Okay, because DC had like previously, I think like a year or two back, they had a different logo. Then they changed the logo, so they're still trying to figure out what they're doing. So I didn't make a big. It wasn't a problem for me, but when it came to the WB logo, I knew something was wrong. And then how things were shot and things were like really going here and there. It sort of didn't make sense, and that whole mood, the feel that was there in even the trailers was lacking. So I mean, when I came back home. At that time only I got onto B-row.
Yeah.
Because I knew that there's something wrong here. So after that I got up to speed, and you know I didn't know about the Snyder Cut and all of that at that time.
So when did you start hearing the first rumblings of the possibility of a different version of the film? When did you begin to kind of get involved in kind of fighting for this unique vision?
The thing is, I heard that Zach had sort of not quit, but gone off of Twitter and had gone to Vero. So I didn't know what Vero was, but I installed it on my phone and started using it. Then I mean, it was unusual. There were a lot of artists and art being shared. So I thought, okay, I also like this sort of stuff, especially Batman. So I'll do
Mm-hmm.
some Batman artwork and put it on there. And slowly, I think I listened to one of the first people that I listened to was Chris Wong Swenson.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He was speaking about the Snyder Cut, and I saw some articles as well. So I was hopeful that there's something there behind the scenes. And after I followed Zach, I kept on tagging him on all my artwork. I think finally I did some work, and actually I think he shared some image of Flash,
Mm-hmm.
and I did some stuff with it, and I posted it on Vero, and I think Rob Carlin,
Yes. Yes.
he tagged Zach, and I think him giving me sort of shout out, and after that I think I went somewhere and I came back, took my phone, and I saw Zack Snyder had followed you.
It's quite a feeling, isn't it, when
Yeah.
when you see that message?
Yeah. So that was interesting. And then I kept on doing stuff. I did the SC logo and
Mm-hmm.
that sort of stuff. So he kept on liking uh, the work that I was doing.
Yeah. So you mentioned the SC logo, and really that's where kind of we became familiar with each other. I at the time was preparing some kind of Twitter campaigning with Fiona and actually Robert Carlin as well. And one of the events we were planning was a kind of a celebration of Man of Steel. It was in June of 2018, I think. Yeah. And one of the ideas, I think Robert had it. It was, well, why don't we all change our Twitter avies to a kind of Justice League, a Snyder Cut kind of image for 24 hours? And I said, yes, sounds like a great idea. Have you got any in mind? And Robert, mentioned the SC logo, which I had seen around, and it was a brilliant idea. So I think that was when I sent you a message on Vero, and it's been campaigning ever since, haven't we? So that was our introduction, and you've done loads and loads of work for the movement. I mean, the hours you must spend.
Yeah. So how I don't know. I mean, my the way I work is a little different, because what I do is I start with the idea and sort of do a bit of work here and there whenever I have time. So I don't do something like from start to finish in one go.
Yeah.
So it takes days or weeks or whatever. Just when I have some time, I just do these things, and
So you have loads of projects going on at the same time.
Yeah. So actually, I have a lot of stuff that I haven't completed. So sometimes you start something, and in the middle of it, you feel it doesn't work.
Everything you've done has been really inspiring, really helpful to the movement. You've done so much. So you have done work on the letter writing campaign that we ran in 2018. You did that wonderful cyborg image where the League are looking at the map of the world. That was stunning. You did the phone call campaign posters with all the times from Man of Steel and BVS where people are talking on phones, and you made the great image for that. But you've done work on the San Diego Comic-Con. with all the billboards and the bus shelters and the leaflets and so much work. And also again with me with the New York Comic Con, the digital billboard, one little idea that I had, and you created these 2D models, and then we collaborated with the wonderful Chris Dawson who animated them, and that was on Times Square, New York, on that Saturday of New York Comic Con, and the whole world saw it. It must be quite something to see your artwork all over the world like that. What kind of feeling do you get? You must feel very proud of the work you've done.
I think I'm really proud of the people who are like day in and day out. Sort of. I mean, there are so many others like me and Abdul and Geraldo and all of these people. I can't name all of them, but everyone's. I mean, they are all putting so much of effort. I think the biggest strength we have is the community. Even though there are people who sort of always put a negative spin on the Snyder Cut community, I think it's completely positive. I think that's the greatest thing I see. They are all fighting for something that, I mean, people see an injustice. It's very ironic that the Justice League movies has become sort of a big injustice to the director, to the people who work on the movie, to the fans, everyone.
It's an incredible irony, isn't it? That the Justice League film is the biggest sense of artistic injustice that we've had in modern times. It's crazy, but yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Our strength is in our numbers. It's in the number of talented individuals, but also the soldiers, the people who work hard, and even the people who just lend their retweets or their tweets. Just simple, small little things. If everyone can do a tiny little thing, combined all together, those little things all amount to something massive, and that is definitely our strength.
I actually wanted to also mention Artist Snyder Cut. That whole idea of bringing everyone together was like a really thing, and I wish they had done it earlier, but it came at the right time, I guess. But and it really sort of. I think everyone who's interested in it and are real fans got together and sort of came together there. So I think,
you're right. We had a bit of a difficult time in that period, but what Artist Snyder Cut managed to do, and I think you're one of the first people that pointed it out to me. That account was the way it managed to get all the different factions of the movement and brought us all together, and it was a really powerful tool to have, and to the people behind Artist Snyder Cut as well. They deserve a lot of praise and thanks. But you do a lot of work for them as well. You do a lot of artwork that they share. Every day I wake up in the morning, I see another piece of artwork from Ramesh De Silva. I'm like, how the hell does this boy do so much?
Yeah, not recently though. I've been a little preoccupied with a few other things, but yeah, I try to at least share something, because some of the things that I've been sharing like recently are like really old stuff. And I still see people saying this is amazing. So lots of people haven't seen like the old older images.
There's a lot of new members, and it's really great to see new blood in the movement, and they get to see all of the great artwork that you've done in the past. So it's great. But again, we couldn't have half the success we've had without you, Ramesh. You have gone way beyond what anyone would consider reasonable. The time you've put in, the energy, the hard work. I know what you do behind the scenes as well, and I just want to say thank you very much for everything you've done, and let's hope that we don't have too much more to do.
That was an amazing profile of Ramesh, who's been very instrumental to sort of he's helped visualize a lot of our ideas, and it's made these iconic images, riffing off of the iconic images that Zach has made. And he mentioned RT Snyder Cut, which is an account on Twitter, and that's something that we haven't talked much about. It's been a very, very instrumental.
The times they are a